All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and how we can use it as a modern tool for a 21st century educator. AI is all over the classrooms now, and if we want to be the most effective educators in this modern era, we really need to be comfortable with these tools that are becoming available to us. This presentation was originally delivered on Friday, April 17th at the ALCDSB Conference for Educators. So, huge shout out to Actua. They are an organization that works with Ontario Tech University Engineering Outreach, where I come from. Actua is an organization that works with a ton of different engineering outreach groups, and they actually work with over 500,000 youth in over 600 communities across Canada. So, thank you so much to them for making this possible. And the Government of Canada is also responsible via their CAN code and NSERC grants. Before we go any further, I want to introduce myself. My name is Alex Pilyunas, and I'm a program coordinator with Engineering Outreach. I got into this role after doing a degree in engineering and starting a master's. I didn't really enjoy the research side of the master's. I found it to be a little isolated, but I really loved working with folks in the classroom, and so I pivoted out of the master's and into a Bachelor of Education. I'm now an Ontario, certified teacher, and I really love being able to wear the hats of both an engineer and an educator at the same time. Some of the things I love to do outside of work, I love to play video games, and I also am learning how to make them. It's a really difficult thing that I'm slowly getting better at, and it gives me an opportunity to leverage my STEM skills in my hobbies. I also love to read, and I am a huge hockey fan. I prefer to play goalie. So our agenda for today, and this agenda will not reflect the timelines that we're in, but we're going to start off with a quick land acknowledgement just after this. Then we're going to be moving into an introduction of what generative AI is. Just kind of getting familiar with the background of it, how it came to be, how we came to have all of these fantastic tools. Then we're going to move into how we can prompt these generative AI tools and best practices for that so that you can get the most effective results regardless of what you're trying to do with the generative AI. Then we're going to move into some more educator focused topics, starting off with how we can leverage AI to support us with differentiation and making our class a bit more accessible to those who maybe aren't as connected to the topic at hand. Then we're going to dive into a quick conversation about assessment and evaluation with AI, looking how we can leverage generative AI tools to explore these topics. And we'll wrap up today with a conversation, a very quick one on privacy and AI, just so that we can keep on top of privacy risks. So, typically at workshops like this, there will be a land acknowledgement done over the announcements or at the beginning of the session, depending on where we are. Ontario Tech always loves to do these, but we like to push it a little bit further, and that uses this word, this Mi'kmaq word that's on the screen, Etowaptamunk. This word means two-eyed seeing, and the way I'd like you to think about it is as if we're looking with a different perspective with each of our two eyes. With one of our eyes, we want to look at the world with a very technological based perspective, thinking about how we can use all these fantastic modern innovations to make our lives better. For example, how we can leverage AI to make our roles as educators more effective, allow us to spend our time more efficiently. But at the same time, we need to be looking with a more traditional based perspective, like the Indigenous peoples do. The Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, also known as North America, they've been here for tens of thousands of years longer than settler peoples like my family. And so they have an innate understanding of the land that's much more in depth. So this traditional land-based learning, we try and keep this as our other perspective and really try and think of how we can protect the environment that we're in at the same time as leveraging these technological advancements. A big example of how this connects to artificial intelligence, AI has a really profound environmental impact. The size of data centers can displace a lot of wildlife, and they have huge impacts on the water systems that they're in. So, as educators, a really great way that we can have a positive impact on the environmental aspects of artificial intelligence is really trying to be judicial with how we use it. So, really trying to only use it in places where we need to, and B, trying to be as efficient as we can by not prompting as often as possible, really trying to refine our prompts so that we spend as little energy with these AI data centers and AI tools as possible. That way, we can minimize their environmental impact. As individuals, the impact would be minimal, but if we can start thinking about this as a collective, then we will have a much more profound impact. Of course, it skipped a slide on me there. That's all right. Oh, never mind. It just looks like it was gonna skip a slide on me. So, um, if you are viewing this from an ALCDSB board location, or you work with the ALCDSB, then you're going to want to sign in to Microsoft Copilot, as that's the board's preferred AI tool. If you're working with a different board, or you have a different preferred AI tool, that's totally okay. All of the topics that we're going to be talking about today do work with other tools, but everything for today is going to be a little focused on Microsoft Copilot. So now let's get into the meat of things. What is AI? It's a really fantastic modern innovation and it's here to stay. So, how is this going to connect to the world of education? So, artificial intelligence, also known as AI, it's any sort of computer system that can start to perform tasks that typically would require human intelligence. This can include things like understanding natural language, such as the way I'm speaking to you right now. This is natural language. It's not highly formalized, it's not kind of cut down to really work with the AI. It's able to recognize how natural language works and follow it. AI tools are also really powerful at recognizing patterns. They can even be better than humans in some cases, especially when given a really narrow task to focus on when it comes to recognizing patterns. Modern AI tools can also learn from experience, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that happens. And this results in them being pretty efficient at decision making. So, a bit of background as to how we got where we were with AI. AI, artificial intelligence, actually started being designed a lot earlier than you might expect. The first AI tools or the first AI theories date back all the way to 1950, the post World War II era, kind of led by Alan Turing. So these early AI theories, they were used to develop things like chess playing machines, which are pretty solid. You can still see evolutions of these in the various chess websites that you might see kids in classrooms looking to play at, like chess.com. And these AI tools were built on the same foundational theories that are used today. Now, you might be wondering, why have we only seen the advent of things like ChatGPT in the more modern history around the 2020s when they first came out? And a big reason behind that is because computational power has not kept up with the AI theories. AI theories have been moving at a pretty steady pace, whereas computational power has moved exponentially. And only recently has it caught up to the point where it's actually able to put some of these theories in practice, which has led to the evolution of tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot being available to the public. Now, looking at artificial intelligence, it's a really broad field, and there's so many things that can connect to it. With ChatGPT and chess playing bots being in the same place, there needs to be ways to categorize them. So that's where we get into the more deeper subsets of AI. Machine learning is where we start to have algorithms that enable the machines to improve their experience, learning from their mistakes. And these tools can really, really produce some fantastic results. These would be things like more modern chess playing tools, being able to learn from mistakes that have happened to them, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if we go even deeper, AI tools start to even mimic the structure of the human brain, not just how we learn. And that's where we start to get to neural networks. These are able to just process an immense amount of data. And that is the foundation of the more sophisticated tools like ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot that we see today. And these more sophisticated tools are forms of generative AI. These tools are types of artificial intelligence that can create new content instead of just editing existing content. This allows them to mimic human creativity and intelligence. The key word there is mimic. No matter how sophisticated these computers get, they are not at the level our brains are at. They're trying to learn from how our brains operate, but they're not there yet, meaning that they are never going to actually be able to fully replicate human creativity and intelligence. It's only based on pre-existing data, so they're only going to be able to, in a sense, regurgitate, modify, and give you back things that it's been trained on, not fully creating new things. And these outputs that are created by generative AI, they can take a ton of different formats. They can be text, even formatted text, tables, bullet points, code. All of these are potential outputs of generative AI tools. They can even generate pictures, video, and audio, making them incredibly effective at creating a whole bunch of different types of content. Now, you might be wondering why you should care about artificial intelligence. It's a really difficult topic to bring up, but it's important to note some key facts about this. And these facts are coming from a survey that was done by Actua a couple of years ago. I think it was in 2023 or 2024. The link will be provided. So if I'm misspeaking on the exact dates or the exact numbers, then that will be able to be corrected. But this survey took the responses of, I think it was about 1,000 grade 7 to 12 youth and 500 educators of all grade levels. And these were some of the findings they found out of this survey connected to artificial intelligence. First up, kids are already using artificial intelligence. 9 in 10 youth are already using these generative AI tools. And so kids are already leveraging what's out there. These free versions of ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, kids are aware of them and they're starting to use them in school and outside of school to complete tasks. But only 70 to 75% of youth feel that they can use these AI tools effectively and responsibly. Now, there is a bit of a disconnect here because educators, only 35 to 40% of them feel the same way. And personally, I think I am more in the folks who do not agree, because even I feel that I have a lot to learn about artificial intelligence, and I think the kids also are in that same boat. Now, fortunately, there is a silver lining here. 84% of youth feel that they have more to learn about artificial intelligence, and that's good. It shows us that there's a hunger to learn about artificial intelligence in the classroom, but us teachers, we don't feel that we're equipped to use this in the classroom and to support with this learning. Less than half of educators feel that they have the skills needed to use AI in the classroom and to teach about effective and responsible use. And this can sometimes make sense. Up until recently, school boards have been a bit apprehensive of incorporating artificial intelligence into their curriculum and into their educational processes. It's only really been in the last couple of years that we're starting to see this roll out. And with the limited time available to educators to really learn about these processes and these tools, I'm not surprised that there's not too many educators who feel comfortable enough. But hopefully, through the session that we go through today, you're going to develop your own artificial intelligence skills. You're going to have a much stronger baseline for using AI personally, which means that you will gradually develop the skills that will allow you to bring it in front of the kids and hopefully teach them about that effective and responsible use. So that's why you should care about AI. Kids are already using it. They want to know more, but us as educators, we don't feel ready for it. And so if we can start to integrate AI into our workflows and to make our lives easier, then we're going to be more effective at teaching the kids about AI, and we're going to feel more confident that we're teaching them about the proper ways to use AI. Speaking of the proper way to use AI, there's going to be a bit of a lens that we're looking at today. And before we jump into that, I want to talk about a way that I've seen AI used pretty often. And this is where that AI dependence comes in. AI dependence is where we start to become entirely reliant on this fantastic tool to do things for us. We use AI to do things, we use it to make everything for us. And this is where AI struggles because there's limitations to what it can do. It's not fully creative, as I've mentioned before, and it makes mistakes. And so this complete over reliance on AI makes it impossible for us to fully keep track of it. And we end up just trying to do too much. So that's not how we're going to approach today. Instead, we're going to be looking at enhancing our capabilities with AI. we're going to use it to support us by creating first drafts and even reviewing content for us. This allows us, the educators, the user, to retain that complete control over the creative process and make sure that we have ownership out of the outputs of AI. Essentially, using it as a personal assistant to help us accomplish things instead of replacing us, which is positive because I know there's a lot of folks who might be concerned about AI's capability to replace us in the workforce. I don't think that's possible. So once again, we're going to be focusing on our ability to enhance our abilities instead of becoming dependent on AI. Now, looking at prompting generative AI, this is where you're going to have that thing that kind of looks like a Google search in front of you, and some people will treat it as a Google search. This is not the case. And generative AI, it's designed to take natural language as an input. Once again, that's similar to how I'm speaking to you right now, as if you were typing a message to a friend. So really try and think about how you can prompt that way instead of like you'd do a Google search. Now, as I mentioned before, we can get a ton of different outputs from the generative AI, but the best way to do it is to be really thoughtful about your prompts. And fortunately, if we aren't happy with our prompts, we can actually continue the conversation. Unlike in a Google search, where if you type something else in the bar, it's going to search something different. With generative AI, if we're still in the same chat and we respond to the AI, it will treat that as a continuation of the conversation instead of a new one. So that allows us to refine our prompts as we go. Now, that being said, that does result in more prompts being sent to the AI data centers, which means a greater environmental impact. So we are going to look to try and minimize that as we get more skilled, which also means that we spend less time working on the AI to get good outputs. But we're going to look at how we can get efficient as we go through today. As an example, we're going to start off with something super simple, trying to prompt an AI to give us a great email to a parent. I know this kind of thing happens to educators all over the place, myself included, even though I don't directly work within schools. And using AI to generate those draft responses allows us to spend less time trying to figure out the best way to respond, and then we can just tweak the output of the AI if we need to at the end. So the scenario that we're going to be looking at is this. Ontario Tech University, we run some March break programs, and as part of those programs, parents will leave their kids with us through the day, and we do a ton of really great activities. We try and build confidence with the kids. Now, the same parent that drops the kid off often can't be the one to pick them up. Life happens, and that's totally okay. We've got processes to ensure that we get all the information we need to authorize a new person to pick up the child. And what we've got here is we've got an email from a parent saying, hey, I want to authorize the grandparent to pick them up. What do I need to do to make this happen? That happens all the time. And so we're going to look at how we can use artificial intelligence to get us a great output here. So if I just take that email and paste it in, I get an output that looks like what I've got on the screen. I authorize grandparents' full name to pick up my child's name from the March Break STEM Academy on any program day. They will present photo ID at pickup. So essentially what it's doing is it's rewriting that original email for me. And that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for a response. And what happened was I wasn't explicitly clear with what the tool should do. I didn't tell Microsoft Copilot that I wanted it to respond, and so it made assumptions. This is one of the most important things to recognize about these generative AI tools is they will make assumptions if they don't have the information they need. So it's incredibly important that we are as specific as possible and we think very, very intentionally about the information that we want to provide to this software. So it, instead of doing what I wanted it to do because I wasn't clear, it acted as if I was sending the email and wanted it drafted. So I can actually respond to the generative AI and give it a bit more context to the situation. So in this case, I've got the response to the generative AI Microsoft Copilot here. And I said, quote, draft a response to the email from the perspective of the organization hosting the March Break Academy. The organization will need authorization from the parent either by email or on drop-off with valid photo ID. Then it got a little better and it was able to draft that response for me. So I was able to improve the output of the AI tool just based off of refining that prompt through continuing the conversation. Now, as I mentioned, this isn't the best way to do things because it does result in more prompts being done, but this is totally okay. Just because it's not the best way doesn't mean it's something you cannot do. It's just something that we want to get better at not doing in the future. Kind of think of it like training wheels with your bike. Totally okay to use them as you're getting familiar with things, but you want to really try and take those training wheels off before you start riding more often. So, when it comes to best practices for prompting, we need to provide it more information. And this information I like to break down into 5 key categories. Number 1, we need to share the role that we are filling with the AI tool as our assistant, what our role is. This allows the AI tool to know who it's speaking on behalf of and how to work the language around in terms of communicating with you directly, kind of tuning its expectations. This is really, really important as it ensures that the AI tool is kind of speaking with the correct tone of voice, using the correct vocabulary. In addition, we need to provide who the AI tool is going to be speaking to, essentially making sure that the vocabulary it's using and the tone is focused on both the way you would speak, but also who you would speak to. For example, an educator speaking to another educator is different than an educator speaking to students, is different than an educator speaking to parents. So both of these are incredibly important. The next thing we want to do is we want to outline the specific task that we want the AI tool to accomplish. This task should include details on what you want the AI tool to do, but also in some cases, information on what you don't want the AI tool to do. For example, if we're getting feedback on something, it might be valuable to tell the AI tool, do not write a draft, because it might assume that you want it to redraft what you've written. It's trying to be as helpful as it can. It wants you to stay there. And we'll talk more about that later. The next thing we can provide is any background information on the task, the context. This allows the AI to pull its information that it's going to be working with as effectively as possible and make sure that it accomplishes the task that you need done. And we'll talk more about what this looks like in just a moment. The last thing that we need to do is we need to tell the AI exactly the structure or the type of output we're looking for, the format of how it's going to generate its response. This allows us to get a really, really specific type of response and make it do a lot more closely to what we expect the AI tool to do. So, I usually like to format these 5 things into a table that looks like this, where I can really specifically outline what those 5 elements are. And the color codes I will use to help me identify where those belong in the prompt, especially as I'm getting started. So you'll see me use those colors. They're not there for no reason. What I would like to encourage you to do as the viewer who is watching this, I would encourage you to take a moment and pause. Go back to where I had the prompt on the screen and see if you can outline where these 5 pieces of information might be in the prompt, and if it's not there, what might that look like? So I'll pause for a moment and let you just get that going. But whenever you're ready, you can resume the video. All right, welcome back. So hopefully you've taken some time to go through the email and what we wanted to share with the parent and written it into this table. And I'll go through what I had. So first off, the persona. In this case, we want the AI speaking on behalf of a STEM organization running a program for youth. In this case, it's engineering outreach. That's who they're speaking on behalf of. Next up, the audience. Who is the AI speaking to? In this case, it's a parent who sent us an email. We don't need to provide any other information here because the rest of the information will go into other places of this table. Next up, the task. We want the AI to draft a response to the email that we were sent by the parents, and we want it to clarify what they need to do to change pickup procedures, to change who is going to be picking up the child at the end of the day. Now, context. This is an interesting one because we have a bit of a mix of ways we can share the information here. We can share information in the prompt directly, but with these modern AI tools, we can actually also upload files. And so we can take advantage of that to provide really detailed context to the AI. So in this case, I would download my entire organizational pickup policy and share that file with the AI tool, with Microsoft Copilot. And I can also share the original email so it knows who it's going to be responding to. Last but not least, the format. What do I want the response to look like? I want a professional email with clear bullet points. I want these bullet points to tell the parent what exactly they need to do so that it's very easy for them to read it. I don't want any communication issues. So, based off of this table and the information that I put in here, I can use this to create a stronger prompt for my AI tool than I would be able to before. And so this is what my refined prompt looked like. And as I mentioned, those color codes were important. As I was learning to use this structure, I really like to highlight the different elements of the prompt to make sure I'm not forgetting everything or forgetting anything. Excuse me. Definitely don't want to forget everything. So this new refined prompt, I'll start off by just pasting that email text. That's a bit of context. Then I work with a STEM organization running a March break program for youth. That is the persona, the role I want the AI to play, who it's speaking on behalf of. And we received an email from a parent. Receiving the email, that's context. The parent is the audience. And I can also say that I pasted it above. That's more context, just to make sure that there's no communication issues with the AI regarding how they can authorize someone else to pick up their child. So just even more specific context. Draft a professional email response, a bit of task, a bit of format there, outlining what they need to do based on our attached organization policy. And the fact that we've attached the policy here is context. So I've just highlighted that part in green just to make it explicitly clear that I have attached the policy to this. But it's hard for me to outline that in the text here. So that is our task and a bit more context. Then the rest of it is just format. Include bullet points with actionable tasks for the parent. And this would be a lot more effective as a prompt for us to use with our artificial intelligence tool. So this would mean that we would not have to be prompting back and forth, and we would be able to get as strong a possible output from our prompting from our generative AI earlier and with fewer prompts required. Now, even if we do a structure like this, there are going to be problems. Generative AI is not perfect, and that's something we need to get comfortable with. You can never just give a prompt and assume it's going to be good. We need to flex those critical thinking muscles. That is one of the most important parts about using artificial intelligence. I might be looking at that email and asking myself, does this actually reflect the true procedures of the organization? Is this something, is it actually pulling the correct information? Because AI makes mistakes. These mistakes are oftentimes called hallucinations, where it will take incorrect information, potentially pulled from multiple sources, synthesized, and then shared with you. It'll take this information that is not necessarily correct and present it as fact. This is important to acknowledge because these AI tools, they want you to stick around. They want you to use them as much as possible. Just by using the tools, you're making them better. And so they will just present the information as fact to make you feel good. They're really sycophantic. And so just really be aware of that and critically think about every single output that you get from artificial intelligence tools. Now, I mentioned that the AI tools are always getting better, and that's because they're always getting data. They're always being trained as you use them. And this is great because it makes these tools stronger, but it also means that you have to be cautious with the information that you're putting into these tools because it can be part of their data set. And I mentioned earlier that one of the strengths of AI is its ability to make to identify patterns, to make connections in potentially unrelated data. And this can pose problems if we accidentally share personal information through generative AI tools. As an example, I've got an email here that might look like something that you get in a classroom. We definitely get stuff like this at Engineering Outreach. So I've used myself as the example in this email. This is not a real email. This is not real information. And I basically, my child, me, will be in your class this year, and they are autistic with generalized anxiety disorder, but they're fully verbal. And this parent wants to know which accommodations we will be providing in the classroom at school name, Ontario Tech U in this case, to improve their learning experience, signed by the parent. If I take this email as is and I put it into generative AI, it is going to learn a lot of things. It's going to learn my name. It's going to learn the teacher's name. Just kind of thinking myself as the teacher in this situation. It's going to learn the name of the child. It's going to learn that they have generalized anxiety disorder, all that information about them. It learns which school they're going to, and it learns their parents' name. That's a lot of information that the AI can start to make connections with. So if we are going to use something like this in our generative AI tools, we need to sanitize it before it goes in. We need to get some of that information out of here. And so I'm going to pause for a moment and let you look at this email. And I want you to identify 4 different pieces of information that we can pull out of this email to make it so that we can still use it in generative AI, but no personal information is shared. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you paused the video to find those 4 pieces of information, and let's go through what those would be. First off, and most obvious to me, the name of the child. We don't want that to be present in there because that is personal information of a minor. That is something we absolutely do not need to share. Next up, the location, the school that this kid is at. We don't need to share this information because that's something it can use to start making connections. Another piece of information that we can get rid of is the name of the parent. We don't want AI to know that this parent has a child who's experiencing autism and generalized anxiety disorder, because then if there's other pieces of information, it'll be able to connect that. Last but not least, it's very easy to get focused on protecting others and not ourselves. So don't be afraid to remove your own name from there. And so, with those 4 pieces that we can sanitize, we can just remove them basically. We don't need the name. We can just say, my child will be in your class, and this is what they experience. I want to know what accommodations you will be providing to improve their learning experience. This has no personal information in it whatsoever. This could apply to anyone. And so this sanitized AI, or pardon me, not AI, this sanitized email is a lot safer to put into the AI tools. Now, with our prompts not being perfect and always wanting to improve it, we're going to want to use something called prompt engineering. And as a member of Engineering Outreach, I got to talk about it. And prompt engineering might sound really sophisticated, but if we break it down and look at what engineering is, it's not that bad. Engineering is all about solving problems. So, a mechanical engineer like myself, we might love to solve our problems connected to machines and solve our problems with machines. An electrical engineer will solve their problems with electrical circuits. Prompt engineers, They just want to solve their problems with the prompts that they're providing to artificial intelligence. So really all this is refining our prompts even further and trying to make them as strong as possible. So like I said, the goal here is to produce the best outputs as possible with minimum effort and inputs, to save us time and to also minimize those environmental impacts of the AI prompting that I mentioned earlier. So, really, we're just going to be looking at some strategies that we can use to solve problems with our prompts. And we're going to look at that in the context of differentiation with AI. And so this focus right here is going to be looking at how we can use AI to connect key topics to our students' learning, um, with a focus on differentiation based off topic, really trying to connect the learning that we're doing in the classroom to our students' specific interests, really trying to personalize that learning. But other areas of differentiation, for example, differentiating based off of grade level, the level at which our students are working at, is also doable, just trying to focus in on specific elements. So, the scenario that we're going to be looking at, and we're going to be using this table, just like we did before, to generate our prompt. So, let's put ourselves in the situation of a grade 9 teacher. Hint, hint. This grade 9 teacher is teaching about the equation of a line in the classroom. And one of the big questions I often hear about the equation of a line is, how is this relevant to me? I don't see how I'm going to use this, from the kids with my great impression of their voices. So, equation of a line is something that I'm really passionate about. I think it's such a valuable tool and I can see it used all over the place, but it's totally understandable if kids don't see that relationship yet. And so what we want to do is we want to use artificial intelligence to help us generate some examples that will connect more to the students' interests, because we might not have those same interests and it would be difficult for us to make that connection. But AI, with its vast access to knowledge around the world and other problems written by other educators, it will be able to effectively solve this problem for us. So, what I want you to do is I want you to take a few moments, once again, pause this video for as long as you need to try and identify these 5 pieces of information that you could use to write an effective prompt. Now, remember, your prompt might look a little different than mine, and that's totally okay. There's more than one way to solve this problem. I'm just going to be showing my example, and we'll go through how to improve that afterwards. All right, welcome back once again. Thank you for pausing the video and taking some time to try this out yourself. I really appreciate you participating. So let's dive into what we're going to have here. So, there we go. So, the 5 pieces that I've got down here in our persona, we want, once again, we want to write some word problems connected to the equation of a line. And so here are the 5 elements I've got here. Persona, grade 9 math educator in Ontario. So that gives us the grade level and that gives us the location, just to help it pull from Ontario based standards. But we're going to give it even more support in a little bit. Our audience is going to be grade 9 math students. Our task, we want the AI to write some example word problems connected to the equation of a line and linked to student interests. So that is the task, writing example problems for this topic, connected to what our students care about, so that they can see how this is relevant to them. For context, excuse me, we want to provide it the Ontario curriculum. We can even go into the online version of the Ontario curriculum and just download the grade 9 section immediately, and we can provide that. That way, it has exactly the curriculum expectations we're looking for, and it can make sure that these word problems are linked to that learning, to that expected learning. We can also provide it the format of the equation of a line that we're using, just to make sure that there's no translation errors, or if anyone is using a different format of the equation of a line, we can get it really focused into a format that the students have seen before and minimize the amount of tweaking, refining that we have to do of the output after we get it. Last but not least, we can provide a list of student interests. We don't have to do this one at a time. We can provide a list of interests and have it generate a ton of different problems at the same time. And I don't know why it's cut off at the bottom there. The format would just be word problems and solutions connected to those student interests, which gives us an output that would look a bit like this, or a refined prompt. So I'm a math educator in Ontario. That is our persona. And I'm working with a class of grade 9 students. That's my audience. We are learning about the equation of a line, and I've given the format in there, y equals mx plus b, in our math class in Ontario. Redundancy, but I'd rather say it twice than say it no times. And we are following the attached curriculum. Write a range of word problems with solutions connected to these student interests. So the format is pretty tight here. Just the word problems with solutions. That's what we want the output to look like, connected to these student interests. And then we just give a list of them. Maybe basketball, F1, dance, etc., etc. All of these things could work. And then we'll get an output. And it's a pretty solid output. It really outlines a lot of different topics that you might not be super familiar with, and this helps you connect this to your students' interests. But there's also still problems with this output, and I'm actually going to be taking an example from the April 17th morning that a teacher shared with me because I thought it was fantastic, because we can make our prompts better. So before I get into the problems that this educator mentioned with their output, I want to go through the framework that I use for prompt engineering. And once again, it's another super simple table. How I like to use this is I like to start off with my original prompt and just paste it in as is. Then I identify the issues that I have with my output. What do I want it to change, or what do I want changed? How can I make this prompt better? After that, I will adjust my original prompt to accommodate those changes. And so as you're looking at your output, you really want to be critically evaluating it. Where are the weaknesses? Where could this output be better and meet my needs more effectively? And how could I address these weaknesses by adjusting the original prompt? Where did I not ask for something? Where did I ask for too much? So let's put this into practice. Let's do an example. So here I have my original prompt. I'm a math educator in Ontario, blah, 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 blah. And I've left all the highlighting there just to show that those elements are still there. Now, this educator, they wanted to really focus in on a small subset of students in their classroom who were also not the strongest. And they wanted to have several different examples to help them practice, to make it relevant to them, and to help them practice and get familiar with this topic as they worked. And once again, these students were not the strongest in the classroom. So this educator looked at the output and they identified two key problems. Number one, there was only one problem shared per interest. Write a range of word problems with solutions connected to these student interests. That only ended up giving us an output of one problem per interest. And that's going to be good for a few minutes. It's not going to really support this individual in getting the practice that they need. Additionally, they found that the problems were at different difficulty levels. Some topics had problems that were just extremely challenging for the equation of a line. And so we want to specify that we want our problems to be at the entry level, because once again, these students that we're thinking about, maybe they're not working at the highest level in the classroom, and we want them to be able to solve problems connected to their interests while they get familiar with the equation of a line. So based off of those two outputs, we can make adjustments to our original prompt, and I've bolded the adjustments here. Basically, to summarize them, write 3 different beginner level word problems with solutions connected to each of the student interests. Really trying to specify more what that task is because we didn't get it to do exactly what we wanted it to do. And that's where that original framework can come in handy as well. It didn't do exactly the task I wanted. Oh, it's not speaking to the right audience. This can help you identify where in your prompt you need to improve. Maybe your context was weak. Maybe your task was weak, as it was in this case. And so we've refined that, addressing both of the issues with the output. And with this, we ended up getting a much more effective output, and we were able to get some really nice entry level problems that this educator felt that they could bring into their classroom and start working with these students. And so I would encourage you to just take some time and start practicing this now. Try some differentiation for your students. And remember, we don't just have to differentiate by topic, we can differentiate tasks by grade level, really trying to take things up or down, really trying to refine things. I've got the 2 tables that I use for my prompting support right here on the screen in front of you. So just take some time to work on that. And pause the video if you need to, because I'm going to get started right away after a brief 5-second pause. All right, welcome back. I hope you found some success in differentiating for your students using artificial intelligence and the frameworks that we've been discussing so far today. Now, let's get into a bit of assessment and evaluation with AI, and let's really look at how we can use it to support us with our assessment. So, one of the big things that puts barriers in front of assessment and evaluation is time. Time is one of the most restricted resources that you have in the modern classroom. And if we can use AI to support us with our assessment and evaluation, it allows us to really focus that time on the places where we need it. We can focus our attention on students who need the most support, and it allows us to even take more effective action on the outputs of assessment or evaluation. Now, the format I'm going to be using for assessment and evaluation, we're going to start by getting it to assess our own work before we assess student work, because we want to really refine those skills before we start putting it into a student-facing place. So there's kind of 3 different ways that artificial intelligence can be leveraged for assessment and evaluation. The first way, and this is one we're not going to focus on a ton today, but I'll have a ton of other resources available to support you with assessment and evaluation. The first way is student focused. This is where the tools are directly student facing, and the students use these to improve their own work. This can include things like automated tutoring systems, chatbots designed to work with students, and you'll see some prompts in the examples that will help you generate chatbots, things like that. But these tools are meant to be student facing. There are also teacher facing tools, and these are going to be the ones that we really focus on today. So these would be things like teacher coaching, assessment support tools, etc. Last but not least, there are institution-focused tools, which really focus on kind of broad decision-making, identifying students who might be at risk, helping to proctor summative examinations, making sure everything is done authentically, etc. We are going to really be focusing in on that teacher-focused assessment, but we'll still address all the other ones. Student-focused AI tools are, like I said, designed to be used by the student to support with assessment and giving them feedback. And there's some really nice advantages here. People often think of AI tools as cold and unfeeling, which is often presented as a negative. But when it comes to assessment for students, this can actually end up being a positive, because the unfeelingness means that the AI tool doesn't feel judgment. And oftentimes kids are really afraid to make mistakes. And so having a non-judgmental way to get feedback is incredibly effective. Educators can also leverage these tools to have a broader reach in the classroom. Having kids go to the AI tool for a bit of feedback, especially if you've curated it to be really tuned to the assessment that you're working on, That can allow you to give effective feedback to the students without even having to interact with them that much, meaning you can focus your time on the students who need that support a lot more. I think about those kids who are looking to take their work from a level 4 to a level 4 plus versus those who are just trying to bring a level 2 to a level 3 or even a level 1 to level 2. We really want to be focusing on those students in the latter examples, whereas the students in the former examples, they still need the support, but it's not really where we need to prioritize our work, and the AI tools can help us accomplish that. Some disadvantages, though, these are the ones which are most often perceived as the ones who could replace teachers, which I personally don't think is possible, but it is important to acknowledge that these are the ones which do bring up that fear. And if we continue with that idea of AI dependence versus AI enhancement, if students become a bit too dependent on the AI tools to get their feedback, then they're going to be removing social aspects of learning, which is incredibly important. The ability to interact with their peers and get feedback from them, that can end up being lost if there's an over reliance on the AI tools to provide that feedback. Additionally, these tools are often the ones which are most connected to for-profit organizations, which means that biases of these organizations are really important to acknowledge when using these tools. Now, teacher-focused tools, these ones are designed to support yourselves in doing your work, creating assessment resources, even evaluating your own work and analyzing the data that you have access to. This has the advantages of saving time on tasks that don't require you to face the students, really allowing you to prioritize working with the kids and doing actual teacher tasks instead of having to write emails. Well, not write emails, but get like feedback on your lessons, worry too much about how you can improve them, things like that. It can also create and edit assessment materials such as rubrics and provide support during assessment. For example, here is an evaluation that I did at the beginning. Here's an evaluation I did at the end. Are these done equitably? Was I unfair? Or did I kind of have a different standard of one versus the other? The AI tools can help with that. That being said, there are disadvantages here. Teacher-focused AI tools are the least common of the three groups, leading to a limited availability of them and capacity for them to do what you want them to do. You can create your own teacher AI tools by using creative prompting of these more general generative AI tools, but that has a skill requirement, and so we need to develop our skills before we're able to do that. Last but not least, it's just important to acknowledge the responsibility for data management and privacy, which is just another piece of liability that we have to occupy our brains with when we're using these tools. Now, institution-focused AI tools, these ones are really just kind of broad strokes. They're used for larger organizations to ensure equity. And so some things that they're great to do is they can identify patterns and identify at-risk students based off of just general educational trends. And they can also help keep consistency across the broader institution, even school boards or at a provincial level. Now, there are disadvantages here, and one of the big ones here is the impact of potentially biased data, incorrectly identifying certain students as at risk, and it also depersonalizes decision making, which is not ideal. Now, let's look at a scenario where we can use AI to support with assessment. So, let's say that we're an educator and we have a lesson plan and it just went absolutely fantastic, greatest lesson that we've ever done, and our colleagues noticed this. They had students in their classroom asking about the lesson that we did and they want to know a bit more about it, and we want to share this feedback with our colleagues from how this lesson plan went. Or we don't want to share feedback, we want to share the lesson plan. But before we even do, we want to get feedback from an AI tool to make sure that it's going to actually be followable for a different colleague, so that they're able to actually implement it instead of being given something and then they have to spend a ton of time parsing it. So that's our scenario. And I'll give you some time to go through that prompting structure once again and see if you can come up with what that might look like, how we're going to get that feedback. All right, thank you for taking the time, pausing the video, and going through that task. Let's look at what our output might look like. So, acting as a colleague teacher, that is giving us the role that we want the AI to fill. I didn't highlight here because eventually we're going to get to the point where we're not highlighting, and it's important to identify all five of these elements in non-highlighted text. So once again, that persona acting as a colleague teacher. Next up, provide feedback on the attached lesson plan. So that is a bit of task and then the attached lesson plan. That's our context there for a grade 7 English classroom in Ontario. And that provide feedback does implicitly say it as they're providing it to a teacher. So that would be a bit of our audience as well. A grade 7 English teacher in Ontario. That's our audience. And once again, the task recommences here with a focus on how easily an educator who's not been able to do that lesson before would be able to follow it. So that is once again our task. Format the feedback as short form bullet points and only include the 5 most important items. That is the format. We don't want to have this redraft the whole thing or just give us so much feedback that we can't take action on it. I just want it to pick the spark notes, those 5 most important items that I can address. And with that, I got a fantastic output. And this was actually really informative for myself because I used a real lesson plan that I've created, and it's given me a bit of information on how I write my plans. And so I'm going to be using this to upgrade. It was talking about how detailed but dense the plan was, making it difficult for someone to follow through it, a bit more explicit and consistent with my timing blocks so that an educator could keep on time and make sure that they're going at the appropriate pace, guiding questions, grouping them more clearly so that the educators can work through those and not miss them. Accommodations, making them easier to navigate because there's a lot of them there, but trying to make it easier for someone to walk through, and then making those transitions between lesson phases more explicit. These are all things that I can improve on. So this was a fantastic way for me to evolve my skills as an educator, and it gave me valuable feedback. And this same structure can be applied to students. So getting student feedback can be done there. And I will give you some fantastic examples through the shared resources that you will have access to alongside this video. And I would also strongly to encourage you to take some time and get some feedback on your own lessons. Get familiar with this process of using AI to assess your work because this is going to be one of those foundational skills that will make you comfortable using AI to assess student work, being able to refine that feedback and tell it exactly what you want that feedback to look like. Similar structures apply to both. All right. Thank you so much for taking some time to get some feedback on your own lessons. I hope that helped you get a bit more comfortable with prompting AI to give very concise, specific feedback, and even starting to think about how you might use that to give students feedback on their work. Now, I just want to finish off today with a bit of conversation about privacy and AI, because AI is constantly collecting data, and I just want to talk about some of the risks associated with that. So, I mentioned before that AI is constantly learning. These tools require an absolutely immense amount of data to be able to train their models and make them perform that the way they do. Now, these AI developers, Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, they're always looking for ways to improve their model. And the way they do that is A, by buying information online, but also by using the information that you put into these public tools. This can be used to train future models. A big thing that I always like to keep in mind is if you are not paying for a service, if you're using a service for free like ChatGPT, you are not the customer, you are the product. And the value that you are providing to them is the information you put into the tool. So it's incredibly important that we're cautious with this information. An example of how this might connect. This is a screenshot from a tool called magicschool.ai. It's a tool designed specifically for educators, and it really leverages some smart prompting strategies to get you better output sooner rather than later. And in this screenshot from their 504 plan generator tool, it even explicitly says in that gray text in the large bottom box, quote, do not use names or any other personal identifying information when describing the student. That's because this is a customized version of one of those large public models. And in order, or as part of them being able to customize it, they have to share data back. And so they're telling you, they're giving you fair warning that you do not want to put student personal information into this tool. And so you need to really think about sanitization before you use it. Now, personally, I use Google Gemini as my preferred tool. And that's because Ontario Tech University has an agreement with Gemini where the conversations that I have won't be used to train their generative machine learning models. We are staying here as a customer, not a product. And so this allows me to be a lot more comfortable using this tool. I'm still sanitizing everything that I put into it because I want to protect myself and anyone that I'm working with as much as possible. But if you are aware of any agreements like this that your school board, your school, the organization that you work with might have, I would strongly encourage you to leverage that agreement to better protect yourself and your privacy needs of, well, yourself and the students and anyone else you work with. Now, some of the risks associated with data sharing in AI, secondary use. Data collected for one purpose is used for another. This could be you sharing information with an AI tool to help make a better output, but then it also takes that data and uses it to train their models further. Secondary use, essentially not the information just being used in different ways. And that will always be the case. That is something that is just consistently present with these AI tools unless there's a pre-existing piece in place. Exclusion, that lack of notice or control in how the data is used. You probably clicked I agree to a very, very long terms and conditions statement when you were using the AI tool. And that is where they notice or they notified you of how they were going to use the data, probably a part of the way through. So you're technically given notice on how these AI tools will use your data, but it is not really effective notice and it leads to a lot of misunderstandings. AI hallucinations, those lead to distortion, that sharing of misinformation, especially with how sycophantic AI is. They want you to stick around so you keep using the tool, so you keep providing information. And so it's not going to say it's unsure. It's going to present every piece of information as fact, which leads to the pervasiveness of that distortion, that sharing of misinformation. Identification, we talked a little bit about this already. AI's ability to uh, identify patterns in seemingly unrelated pieces of data and being able to link that to one's identity. This is a big factor in why we want to sanitize the inputs of artificial intelligence because of that incredibly powerful pattern recognition. Then last but not least, improper protection of data. This is something that's relevant in any online service, but data breaches do happen. And that doesn't exclude these large services like OpenAI, Google for Gemini, Microsoft for Copilot. They all experience data breaches. And so the information that you share, even if it was only to be used for a correct method, nefarious persons are going to get access to that and use it in improper ways. Something else that's really important to acknowledge is that because AI is so new and the legal system moves so slowly, legislation has not caught up to the evolution of AI, particularly in Ontario and in Canada. Some bills are being drafted, but there really isn't much out there to help protect you from AI and anything to really specifically mention how AI should be used and how to protect you. So really be aware of that. Legislation isn't quite there yet, and so it's up to ourselves to be aware of these risks and to protect ourselves from them until it gets to that point. Now, just to quickly wrap up, I want to say thank you all so much for joining me to talk about artificial intelligence, how we can use it as the modern educator, how we can use it to evaluate our own work, assess work, and also to accomplish some of those smaller tasks for us. I hope you you feel a bit more confident in your ability to leverage AI professionally. And I hope that you continue to develop these skills and start to bring your kids into this as well, because as I mentioned before, this is such a valuable topic and AI is here to stay. The cat's out of the bag. We can't put it back in. And we need to prepare ourselves to use this. We can't just stick our heads in the sand. Some really key takeaways from today that I want you to just keep with you. This AI, all these generative AI tools, they're incredibly powerful to support us in creating content, but it will never be able to replace the human element. The most powerful computers in the entire world are stuck up inside our heads, and it's even better than all of these incredible data centers and processing systems that they have for these large companies. The brain is still more powerful. So, at least as of now, humans cannot be replaced by AI, especially when it comes to those soft skills. These AI tools, they do excel when their tasks are as simple as possible and when they have clear objectives. When there's more complexity or when the AI has to start making assumptions, it struggles significantly more. When we do use these AI tools, it's important that we're always critically thinking about the outputs that we get, especially when the AI is synthesizing information from the context that we provide. It's incredibly important to make sure all of that information that synthesizes is accurate. Last but not least, a user of AI like yourself and myself, we should always be careful about the information that we're giving to these AI tools and trying to be aware of how this information can be used, because this information is going to be used in different ways than we expect it. And so being cautious of what we're putting in and knowing what those other ways are will help protect us and the people that we work with. If possible, I would love to have you fill out a feedback form. Engineering outreach is always about improving the work that we do. And so I would love to know what you thought about today. I have a QR code on screen if you'd like to scan it, but the link is also there as well, feedback.actua.ca/teachers, and you'll use the access code 6535 to provide feedback. Engineering outreach and myself, we're always looking to grow. And so your feedback is incredibly important to know how I can make this session more effective and how I can better support educators like yourselves. But I'll leave that on the screen. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, night, evening, morning, whatever time it is when you're watching this session. I've been Alex Pilunas from Engineering Outreach. Thank you very much.